We're in the middle of the inyan of what's a giboy gamur and what's behelen. What comes from a revealed source, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala himself on Har Sinai, Tree Yaakov, Luchos, and what's Ruach HaKodesh, Torah Shabbat Peh, something that we have to work through ourselves and comes through us, which is far more confusing and complicated and but stronger at the end because it's something which was internalized. It's of us. So, this is Rav Tzadok Seudah. We're returning to the Indian of Shabbos. Seudah the Chakal Tapuchin Kadishan, a real Zoharic lashon. Hu reach hasodeh shel tapuchim shenichnas im Yaakov Avinu alav hashalom. Sheheriach hayidei ze Yitzchak reach boigdo. Why don't we take Sfarim? It's so much easier to understand the Aramaic. Shegam heim noisnim reach toiv. U'maleim Kedusha mitzvos karimai. So, let's just explain. Seudah the Chakal Tapuchim. If you, there are 3 seudos on Shabbos, and if you're so inclined, before each seudah, you say Askinu Seudasa, and even if you don't say it, it's happening, whether you say it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. And the way the Askinu Seudasa just spells out what's going on. There's 3 seudas. There's the seudah of Tapuchin Kadishan. There's the seudah of Atika Kadisha. And there's a seudah of Zeranpin. Anybody know what any of those 3 mean? The seudah of Friday night is the seudah of Chakal Tapuchin, which literally means, Chakal means what? Chaklaut.
Field.
Farm. Orchard. So, Chakal Tapuchim, the Friday night seudah is the first seudah of the apple orchards. And if you go to lunch, seudah, so here we say Askinu Seudasa de Mamnusa, Shlema Chedvasa de Malcha Kadisha. That's always the same every seudah. Then we say Askinu Seudasa de Malcha. We're doing a tikkun of a seudah. I'm reading from the Siddur. Dahi Seudasa de Chakal Tapuchin Kadisha. The Friday night, Dahi Seudasa. This is the seudah of Chakal Tapuchin Kadishan, of the holy orchard of apples. What about the Zeranpin and the Atika Kadisha? Asyan Lasada Bahade. They're also coming in for the seudah. These are 2 different. These are basically 3 different manifestations of the Shekhinah. I'm not. I would be happy to explain this all to you if I understood it myself, but I'm just. What we could understand is that there's 3 madregas of the Shekhinah. There's the Shekhinah of Chakal Tapuchin. There's the Shekhinah which manifests itself in Zeranpin and Atika Kadisha. So at lunch, after Musaf, start saying these things. It's in the Siddur. After Musaf, before the seudah, we say Askinu Seudasa de Malka, Da. This is Yom HaShabbos. Da hi Seudasa da Atika Kadisha, as opposed to Da hi Seudasa da Chakal Tapuchin. So what about Chakal Tapuchin? V'Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin Zeranpin Asil Sada Bahade. They're coming and joining for the seudah, and then in Shalshudas, of course. What's that going to be the seudah for? You're following here? Zeranpin. Let's see if it works. And Moshe's going to sing it for us. Askina Seudasa de Malka Dai Seudasa de Zeranpin. V'Atika Kadisha V'Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin Asil Sada Bahade. So we have three seudas. Let's memorize this. You have the Chakel Tapuchin, which is the seudah of Friday night, Leil Shabbos. You have the Atika Kadisha, which is the seudah of lunch, and the Zer Anpin, which is the seudah of Shal Shudas. Dahi Seudah Sada Zer Anpin. Okay, and it refers to three madregas of the Shekhinah, meaning Hashem's presence in this world, how much we can feel Hashem, how much we see Hashem, the kesher between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, which is strong, very strong on Shabbos for reasons we're going to explain. It's the Tachlis Habriya Shabbos. So it comes in three madregas. So let's go one after the other. Let me just say very simply, translation. Chakel Tapuchin is, that's really the most complicated one. Apple orchard, Makesher. Apple orchard. The Atika Kadisha refers to there's a word for the Shekhinah, Atika Kadisha, but it's the ancient Atika, Atik. It's the ancient manifestation of the Shekhinah, meaning that which appeared to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is called Atika Kadisha. We'll explain. And then the Zer Anpin is the word Zer Anpin means microcosm. It's even used in modern language, so to speak, yeshivish language. Zer Anpin means the katan. In other words, if you take the whole thing when we're explaining HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's always Zer Anpin. Avraham Avinu understood it, Tika Kadisha, and Yitzchak Avinu was the first to understand that B'chakel Tapuchin. I'm not saying the math. So these are three ways of understanding the Shekhinah. What is Chakel Tapuchin? So Chakel Tapuchin says, the Zohar is bringing here, Sudasa de Chakel Tapuchin Kadishin, Hu Reach HaSodeh, when Yaakov walked in to get his bracha from Yitzchak, so he wore the begadim of Eisav. Vayarach es reach begadav, and Yitzchak smelled the scent of the begadim of Eisav being worn by Yaakov, and he gave him a bracha. And he said, "Hine reach benika reach hasadeh." Chazal, the Gemara in Tainus Daf Chav Tes, says, what did he smell? Pashat of Shaz, he smelled Eisav. Okay, it's Eisav. That's what I wanted to give the bracha to. He smelled something with the clothes. Reach boigdav. He smelled.
Ganeden.
No, reach boigdav. Those that hurt him. Bogate. A bogate is those. He smelled a rat. He smelled reach boigdav. He smelled Sisra. Say Chazal. He smelled Nero and Kesar. He smelled the people that killed us. And he gave him a bracha. We learned this months ago in Rav Tzadok. Vayarach es reach begadav. It's in the Gemara. Reach begadav, al tikr begadav el boigdav. Gemara.
But you said you also saw Rabbi Meir.
Because when he saw Nero, he saw that came out from him Rabbi Meir. Nero, so he darshan. Rabbi Meir darshan was like a Nero, like a candle. Meir means to give light. So Rabbi Meir was a grandson. He was a ger. He was a grandson of the Caesar. Saw Sisra, Kiyatsa Imeinu Rabbi Akiva. You know that Sisra was killed by Yael. How was he killed by her? It was Aver Lishma. The classic case of Aver Lishma is the Yael cohabited with Sisra, killed him, chopped off his, spiked him, whatever, took the thing out, pegged, whatever you call it, when you take the thing out of a tent and smash the guy in the head. There must be some word for it in the Webster's dictionary. Marriage. No, he didn't guilty. No. She took the spike and she went into his head. But anyway, she became pregnant, says Chazal, from Sisera, and Yatsa Mimana Rabbi Akiva. So it's kind of only in Judaism do we have such things. It's kind of wild. Like a Verilishma. She wasn't even Jewish as Yael.
One night. One chef, one night.
Right. Sounds like Rabbi Akiva. It took a long time to Rabbi Akiva. You're talking 1,000 years, you know? Yeah. Only by us we have such things. So
Doesn't work what you do.
So Vayorach es reach b'gadav, it starts to get a little bit clearer. Vayorach es reach b'gadav. The Yitzchak was a deep seer. He wasn't just a seer. He was a deep seer. He was blind, but he saw very deep. And he saw and he smelled. The sense of smell was very strong. When you're blind, your sense of smell is extra. He wanted to give his bracha not to Yaakov, which he saw as obviously the tzaddik, but he wanted to give the bracha to Eisav, because from Eisav would come out a Rabbi Akiva and a Rabbi Meir, who were, agav, the fathers, if you will, of Torah Shebaal Peh. So, meaning that Yitzchak was sniffing for the omek of Torah. So Yaakov ish tam, Yoshavo alim. I'm not knocking Yaakov. I'm just saying that Min Hashemayim Yaakov got the bracha, not Eisav. But the fact of the matter is that that wasn't Avram, that wasn't Yitzchak, that was Rivkah, who said that you can't give the bracha to Eisav, you have to give it to Yaakov. But Yitzchak himself knew what he was doing. He was fooled, but he knew what he was doing because he had a scent of Eisav, and he liked that. So what did he smell? So Rashi says, which seems to be a stira to this Gemara. The Gemara in Tainus Chavtaz, he said he smelled Eisav. Reich Botav, worse than Eisav. He smelled Romans, he smelled Nazis. He smelled the worst. Rashi says that when Yaakov Avinu walked into the room, that he smelled the Reich Gan Eden. So what's the mixture of putrid smell and Reich Gan Eden? Like, what did he smell? Did it smell good or did it smell bad? So he smelled Kireach HaSodeh. So what did he smell? So he's a confusing moment. Very, very deep things. He smelled everything but Yaakov. He smelled Reach Gan Eden, Rashi says. I'm saying Gemara. And he smelled Reach Boigdav. So how do you smell Reach Boigdav and Reach Gan Eden? So the answer is that when he smelled Sisra, he smelled Rabbi Akiva, but very, very deep. And when he smelled Nero and Kesar, he smelled Rabbi Meir. And who knows what else he smelled. But that's what we know. We don't know. Those are two events in history, as I say, important because Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva were really powerful, but they came from something very bad. They came from Eisav.
So did Rivkah. She's on.
Yeah. The Tamar, as you say, Mashiach. Mashiach. Somehow or another, it's what we've been learning, that V'yisrein ha'ar min ha'choshech. V'yisrein ha'ar min ha'choshech. So, this phenomenon in Kabbalah, the smell that he smelled, is called the smell of the Chakal Tapuchin. And that's what we have to, and that's what we're misaking Friday night, which we need to understand. But before we get to Friday night, it's going to step by step, sophisticated material, we have to go slowly. This is called the smell of Chakal Tapuchin, of the apple orchard. Who's speaking about apples here? What are we coming to apples?
It's a dust.
So, there's all kinds of shitas. What was it, the Eitz Hadas? I don't think one of them is that it was an apple. Well, except for the Christian forbidden apple. Lamaisa, Shlomo Melech spoke about this. Kitapuach, Shir Beis, Pasuk Beis. That he said when he was talking about Klal Yisrael, he talked about them Kitapuach Ba'atzei Hayar. The Klal Yisrael is like an apple. Kitapuach ba'atzei. Let me show you something. Shabbos. Where it says, Gemara, I think Shabbos Peches. It's amazing how it all comes together. If you can think. Gemara says, talking about Nasav and Nishma, Shabbos Peches. Amar Rav Chama bar Chanina. Ma'idachsiv kitapuach ba'atzei hayar. What's the pshat in the pasuk? So Shlomo Melech was talking about Klal Yisrael. They're kitapuach, that's us. We're like an apple in the forest. Lama nimshalu Yisrael l'tapuach, says the Gemara. Why are we like a tapuach? We know other places we're like oil because we rise to the top. There's different metaphors for the Jewish people, but why an apple? So says the Gemara, Amar Chama bar Chanina, Laimar Lacha, it comes to teach you, Ma tapuach zeh, Piryoi koidem la'olav. Af Yisrael ikdimu nasa l'nishma. Does that help? Apple is unique that usually when a tree grows, so the tree grows, and the branches grow, and the leaves grow, and then finally you get a fruit. That's the usual. Not here. Lama nimsha Yisrael tapuach ma tapuach zeh piryoi koidem la'olav. First you get the apple, and then you get the leaves. Af Yisrael, ikdimu nasa l'nishma, so the apple is the nasa, right? The fruit comes first, and the leaves are the nishma. So let's stretch our brains here to understand that with this Gemara, this Pashat of Sham, this Gemara, like, what's Rabbi Chama bar Chanina like thinking? Where's he coming from? Just like an apple comes the fruit before the leaves. So too Klal Yisrael stood at Har Sinai, and they had the nasa, which is somehow metaphored by the apple, the nishma, which is metaphored by the leaves. That's the kasha. So Rashi says, Piryoi koidem la'alav, kach darkoi. Kach is it. The cholok mishari la'nois, different than every other tree, chanotas peiroisav koidem la'alav. In the so far as its pre comes before its leaves. Just while we're here, for Tosfos, Hiksha Rabbeinu Tam, Arayana Raib Shagadol Kashari Lanos. I've watched apple trees, they look like every other tree, just like Rabbeinu Tam. Tosfos Kasha. Farish, Rabbeinu Tam explains that you got it all wrong. A tapuach is not an apple altogether. Tapuach hainu esrog. A tapuach is really an esrog. So the Gemara is not talking about apples at all. It's apples and oranges. It's talking about a citrus. It's talking about an esrog, specifically a citrus. The Shlit'a Dvarma, esrog daimon lilan. The Gemara speaks about this. The esrog, shiur itself, it says v'reach apcha ketapuchim. If in Shlomo Melech in Parak Zayin said reach apcha ketapuchim, shemitargum minam, and over there the Targum says karecha de esroiga. The esrog, now that we're talking about esrog already, piryoi koidem la'alav enochanam. In other words, he wouldn't take the Gemara and say, I went out, it's the way to learn a Gemara. I went out and looked at an apple tree. Is it true or is it not true? He says, not true, false. So what does it mean? He has to go with the Targum, it's the Charayu to the Targum, that the Targum said the tapuach doesn't mean tapuach. Tapuach means esrog, and over there you see piryoi koidem la'alav.
That's true?
Frank the Barsha. That's
Mar says esrogim. There's no season for an esrogim.
right. Shadar, very good, Moshe. Shadar be'ilan mishana l'shana v'achrei shana noishrin alav shel ishtakid u'bayin alav macherim. That what happens, the esrog stays on the tree from year to year, and the leaves fall off. Meaning, Tosfos is saying it's not true. What's true is that first come the leaves. Very interesting. First comes the leaf, then comes the esrog, then the leaves fall off, and new leaves come. So in that sense, the pre comes before the aleph, in a way, which is so fascinating. The Tosfos is telling us that that's what we're talking about, which agav is a riot to the Beis HaLevi, because the Beis HaLevi famously asked the question, Hakdama to the Shalom Shivas Beis HaLevi. He said that, what do you mean Nasa v'nishma? How could you have a situation? Yes, we'll do it, and then we'll hear it when you don't know what you're doing. How can you do something before you hear it? It's not just like how do you even do it? How are you supposed to do it? You want to be a firm Jew? Yes. You want to hear what's involved? Later. It's impossible to have a nasa unless there's a nishma. So says the Beis HaLevi, al karchach, there was a nishma, nasa, v'nishma. There had to have been first they heard what it is. They said they heard what it is. They had a hint of what the Torah was. Then they said, we'll do it. And then they learned. So Beis HaLevi learns that what's the pshat, what do they have to learn? They already knew. So he says there's two kinds of learning. The Beis HaLevi, there's learning to learn what to do. Halacha seudah. And then there's learning after you know what to do. You're learning Torah lishma, learning Torah for the sake of learning. So what they were saying, Beis HaLevi holds, the asel nishma is that we're going to keep on learning even after we know what to do. This is not a religion of just practicality. It's a religion of doing and further understanding even after you know what to do. And there's no particular practical point to it.
So I don't know if it's connected, but it seems like the nasa, the anoichi, the type of nevuah, and then the nasa v'nishma, then they learned the whole Torah, and then they were learning that.
Very good. Torah Shabbat Peh.
Right, and that's also what we're...
What do you mean you don't know if it's connected? That's what we're learning. That's exactly what we're learning. But I just want to say that the metaphor to the esrog is very geshmak, because first comes the leaves, which somehow are connected to the nishma. Then comes the esrog, which is connected to the nasa. Then the leaves fall off, and you have new leaves, so you have a new nishma. So you have a nishma, nasa, nishma, exactly like the Beis HaLevi says. So if you have this Beis HaLevi at home, you should write this in the margin. It's Harayim Befurish B'Tosfos that he's right. That now, do we understand why the apples are the nasa and the leaves are the nishma?
It's the fruit. And then the fruit of nishma nasa.
Meaning the fruit is lamaisa.
Right. And the nasa is the fruit of nishma.
So meaning like this, what Rabbi Gil is saying, so let's say you go to the Yarkon, right, to what do you call the guy who sells those fruit? Yarkon. And living Beit Shemesh too long. You go to the Yarkon and you say, let me see them apples. And who cares what the history of they tell you this one comes from the Golan and this one comes from the Arctic. So look at the apples. Who cares? Who cares? And we certainly don't care if the leaves came before the fruit. Lamaisa, I want to eat an apple. That's the tachlis of the Lamaisa on an apple. So that's the nasa. That's the nasa. The deep part is, where did this come from over here? Where did it come from? It came from a tree. You don't make these in a factory. It came from a tree. It came from allen, and allen came from branches, and branches came from a tree, and a tree came from roots, and the roots are so ugly and so confusing, and who could look at these roots and see an apple? So here's the apple, bachutz, gilui, like you say, is total gilui, so beautiful to see an apple, or an esrog, even more beautiful. More expensive, more choshev, right? So here's this is, by the way, when you get to the season, this is the union of the chanota, yes to have a pitum, not to have a pitum. This is the sugya here of an esrog. But here's the pol yotze, that's lamaisa. Lamaisa, I'm doing good things. Lamaisa, I'm putting on tefillin. Lamaisa, I'm doing chesed. Lamaisa, I'm doing the right things. What's going on deep in terms of my understanding, that's already the tree. And even deeper, if you want to go into it, beside, if you want to go into it psychologically, it's really the trunk of the tree, it's really the roots of the tree, it's really the seeds of the tree, which are so dirty and ugly and full of rikavon. The only way you're going to get this apple is you have to have some rotting in the beginning. So what's the yisoid of chakal tapuch? And the yisoid is yisrein ha'or min hachosh.
Malchus.
Malchus. Yisrain ha'or, slowly, not as fast as you. Yisrain ha'or, mina chayshech. Forgive me, I just want to be clear. I want to be step by step clear what we're talking about. This is our sugya here. Our sugya is that or comes from chayshech. It's not in spite of chayshech. So apples come from roots. Apples come from roots that comes from. Now let's just carry this back for a moment. Yitzchak Avinu, the greatest Navi in that generation, possibly in history. So he's looking at what's he looking at? He's looking at the Rasha Eisav. Kireach Hasada, he's looking at the Rasha named Sisra, who killed Jews. He's looking at the Rasha named Nero and Kesar. And he's saying, okay, that's the root of a tree. There's the chayshech, but I smell apples. That's what he's smelling. I'm still a sregim. So, in other words, I don't want to say, I'm just saying my language, Rivkah wasn't getting it. I'm telling you something, you're telling me Teresh B'Ksav, I'm telling you Teresh B'Alpeh. That's what's really going on. You're telling me, or Golui Rivkah, my wonderful wife, but I'm telling you Ruach HaKodesh. I'm telling you Rabbi Akiva, I'm telling you Rabbi Meir. Remember the Gemara says that B'Sefer Torah shel Rabbi Meir, Hayaksiv, Kosnois, or Ba'alef, or. You're telling me, or with an ayin, which is externals. I'm telling you, or the light which is deep, deep inside of it. Whether that was exactly what was written in the Sefer Torah of Rabbi Meir, we were done. Maybe it was a footnote in the Sefer Torah. But the point is that Yitzchak saw something much deeper in Eisav. He saw what can come out of the struggle of the root of the rikavon of the as far as matzmiach Yeshua, that semach David abdecha mahir satzmiach. It's always a plant, because a plant is rikavon. Has to rot. It has to. If it doesn't rot, if you have a completely clean atmosphere for a seed, you will not get a. So the nasa l'nishma is interesting. So this is the Jewish thing, that nasa l'nishma, that somehow Yaakov Avinu. So of course, the bracha came to Yaakov Avinu. Here's the nasa, the nishma is coming afterwards. Pre koydem la'alav. If he would have given the bracha to Eisav, maybe it would have been different. So it's complicated to try to understand the chakal tapuchim. But that's what the chakal tapuchim. That's how we're miyashiv the stira of Yarach Ezreach Begadav Dahainu Boigdav, and at the same time Yarach Ezreach Gan Eden.
Why is it Friday night?
Why is it Friday night? Let's take. I was thinking, if you will allow me, on Friday night, this is Miras, maybe you don't say. There's the Askinu Seudah. So let's learn together for a minute. If you have a sitter, look at the Azamer B'Shvachim. It really touches up. Starts to begin to understand. The Azamer B'Shvachim is the Zmiris. We write Zmiris. We all sing Zmiris, the ones that we know the tunes for. They're written by people we don't even know who they were. Menucha v'Simcha Shema Machaber Moshe. Okay.
Narrows it down.
Uh-huh.
It narrows it down.
Yeah. Ma'ayafis Ma'na'amta Shema Machaber Mordechai. Mordechai bar Yitzchak Chazak. Who wrote the Azamer B'Shvachim? Ani, Yitzchak, Luria. That's what they take a look. Azamer B'Shvachim. Ani, Aleph Nun Yud, Yud Sadeh Ches Kuf. He was there, last name and everything. Ani Yitzchak Luria, who was the Arizal. So he says this is Arizal teaches us. You're supposed to say, if you're into Kabbalah, you're supposed to say this even holding the kos. Yayin. I don't do that. But, that's what it says here. Zamer b'shvachim. It says, Zamer b'shvachim l'meyal goy pischin. Just learn a couple lines here. Zamer b'shvachim l'meyal goy pischin. I'm singing now the Shvachim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Azamer b'Shvachim. Yesh Oimrim that the Azamer here doesn't mean I'm singing. It means like when you're in a Zomer. Zomer is to prune. It's interesting that it's the same word for pruning as it is for singing. You're a singer. Can you explain it? What are you pruning? Maybe getting out the bed, So Azamer b'Shvachim. L'me'al go pischin. What you're doing here is that this is what you're doing Friday night. You're singing, let's say, the Shvachim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'me'al go pischin, to move away all of the disturbances and blockings that are stopping the Pesach of us reaching the Shekhinah and the Shekhinah reaching us. In other words, we're clearing the tubes here and the pipelines from Shemayim to Aretz. That's Azamer, this Arizal understood. Azamer b'shvachim l'me'al go pischin, dev'chakal tapuchin de'inun kadishin. And we're trying to recognize the chakal tapuchin de'inun kadishin, and how holy they are. It sends a chill to read these words of the Arizal. What he's saying here is what's the disturbances of the Shekhinah coming into Aretz? Eisav, right? Vayarach has reach begadav has reich boigdav. But if it's possible to see the reich of Gan Eden, like Rashi says, if it's possible to see in the reich boigdav of Eisav, like the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva, so now you've taken that which is blocking the pipe between the Ribono Shel Olam and us, and not allowing the Shekhinah to be Shari Yisrael, Azamer b'Shvachim, by keeping Shabbos, L'me'al go pischin, I'm opening them all up. Why? The b'chakal tapuchin de'inun kadishin. Because I'm seeing the Reach HaSodeh.
Tater Tzrura.
Tater Tzrura. And what are we doing? The Arizal says this is the whole Shabbos seudah is a setup to be able to reach the Omek Hadavar, to be able to smell what Yitzchak smelled when Yaakov walked in, which was the Reach Gan Eden in the Reach Begadim of Eisav. The metaphor in the Metzias is so strong. I just want to make sure we don't miss this. That you have a Yaakov Avinu wrapped up in the Begadim of Eisav. What a klipa! The Sefer Torah, the mantle of the Sefer Torah was Big Day Eisav. Could you imagine if, let's say, we got a hold of some Big Day Eisav? Here, I have a Yerusha from my father. And, he shows me, a Nazi belt and a Nazi hat, a Nazi, a badge that he got from a Nazi for a pack of cigarettes. So, okay, so let's take it, open up the Aron Kodesh, we'll put up, you know what it says, by the way, so talk about the klipa, on the Nazi belt has a swastika, Mach Shemam V'Zichram, and then it says in German, Gott ist mit uns. Hello. Past for Sefer Torah. Gott mit uns. That's what it's Gott mit uns. That's
It's not different than the terrorists, today. The blind result in buses, the same thing.
Yeah. Gott mit uns.
Allahu Akbar.
Allah Akbar. So, Allah Akbar. So, okay, crazy on the one hand. On the other hand, I don't know if Eisav, this is all Sof Kol Sof, Amalek, Eisav. Amalek is such a, I don't want to extol any Nazis here, but Amalek is such a, so far out in the klipa that it's taka the part that you throw away. Timcha Zecher Amalek, it's taka the part that you throw away. But I was saying, even in that chayka, the Gottman, so what are we doing on Shabbos? We're not smelling the cholent, and we're smelling the reyach, the chakal tapuchin, and that's the Friday night dafka, the seudah that we're breaking. Why is it Friday night? Because we're breaking through a klipa of the week, and we're moving into a davar shebekdusha, and we're saying l'me'al goy pischin dev'chakal tapuchin. We're going to clear the tzinor, we're going to clear the pipes, so that we can take a smell the chakal tapuchin which is the Omek, which is the Rabbi Meir and the Rabbi Akiva in the begadim of Nero and Sisra.
Don't forget Yaakov, and that they were twins. Yaakov was really the root. He was the root. He was holding on to the foot. He was the foot.
Also needs to
Yeah.
fit in. As Nazamin, let's go a little further. Nazamin lahashta. We're eating now. Nazamin lahashta. Bifsayra chadata. What's b'sayra chadata? Pas. With new challah. Uvimnarta tafta. New good light. Neros. The Nahar narration. So the Arizal says the Nahar narration. So it's here in the Pirush. Just read to you. Elu has this is a Pirush of the Minchas Yaakov. Elu hashvachim as Amar b'shvachim yu ma'arin sheyiftechu hasha'arim lamala. These are ma'arid. This is what we're asking for on Shabbos. Like we can't lose sight of the fact that on Shabbos we're sitting at the table at Kiddush. Besides for resting, which is Lamanya Nuach, clear. But besides that, we're opening up sha'arim right now. This is like what a thing to tell your family and guests. We're now going to open up some sha'arim, and we're going to clear some blockages, like a not even a bypass, but like an actual clearing up the scenarios. And we're going to do this by being mishabeach Hashem. It's going to open up the sharim lamala. This is what's going to happen. And which sharim exactly are going to be opened right now on Friday night? Says Arizal, Minchas Yaakov explains, Chakal tapuchen. Zeh sharei hashchina, v'zeh nikras chakal tapuchen. K'may shekasav, listen to this, Ra reach b'ni k'reach hasada, v'darshu chazal, shenasan by reach toiv migan eden shel sada tapuchem. So everything that we just learned, everything that I just said is right here in the Minchas Yaakov. That particularly Friday night is not the tikkun. We're not opening up the pipe of Atika Kadisha or the pipe of Zeranpin, which is actual manifestations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you can actually see. Begaloi, Zeranpin is a microcosm of Shechina. You can actually see something maybe like the Beis HaMikdash, where you can see Nisim or Kriyas Yamsuf. That's the Zeranpin. The Beis HaMikdash is the Zeranpin. That's called Zeranpin of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. What we're doing Friday night is we're not holding anything like that. We're holding Chakal Tapuchim. We're holding that Yaakov looks like Eisav, or Yaakov is enwrapped in Eisav. And we're talking about the smell of the blind man, the smell of the blind prophet who couldn't see the Kedusha but could smell the Kedusha, and next to Rivkah, who can see not Kedusha but Tumah, and said. But she also knew to put these begadim on Yaakov. And she knew her husband. She knew he liked the Reach of Eisav. He was a deep guy. Yitzchak was a deep guy. Pirush. What does it mean? Ra Reach b'ni kareach sada v'darshu chazal shenasan by Reach toiv migan eden shall stay tapuchen. Dafka smelled like stay tapuchen. Pirush, Oisam Sha'arim, Ashehem Kedoshim Al Derech Shari Bina, V'loip Sachim Mamash. Nizamin Lahashta, now, Pirush Be'ez Hachnasa Shabbos, B'v'sayra Chadata, which means B'shulchan Aruch B'lechem Mishnah, we put Lechem Mishnah on the table, Shaloi Kederech Chol, U'b'v'narta Tavta, Pirush, Sh'yikach Nerois Delicacies Yafa, you should take beautiful candles, right? Beitivos haneres, narta tafta. Tafta doesn't mean good. Tafta means lashon hatavas haneres, which means good, but it means to fix the neres. The Nahara narration. What does that mean? Anybody know? Let me read the words again. The Nizavin lahashta b'v'sayra chadta b'narta tafta. So far, so good. The Nahara oration.
Lights up our heads.
What?
Lights up the heads.
What's the word means what? Nahara means
Nahara is light, right?
oration.
Heads.
So it was our house, it was an Aaron Beisa.
No, the heads. I said.
Lights up our heads. Oh, no, just lights up our heads. So he says, Pirush, Aroish shall kol echad ve'echad me Yisrael. Kedisa b'Gemara, because the Gemara says, V'achnasa Shabbos shnei malachim malavim es adam. Come home from shul. It's only if you go to shul, by the way. 2 malachim walk into the door with you. Umenichen, this is the part of the Gemara a lot of people don't realize. Umenichen es yedeyan aroishai. And he puts his head, the malachim put their hands on his head. And they say, they give him a bracha, Yiratzin shiagam l'Shabbos haba came. V'zeu denara al reishin shi'ira brachas alalu al roish kol echad ve'echad mi Yisrael. So that the brachas of Shabbos should come onto the heads of every single person in Klal Yisrael. That's what the malachim are benching us when we come in. So you come home from shul, and the Gemara says, and you see the table set. That's why it's important to have the table set. You have the lechem mishnah on the table. You have the neiros on the table. You can't go run to scramble to get that after you come home. Then you miss this bracha. The bracha is you come home, the table's set, shulchan aruch, narta, kiddush, everything is set, and the malachim put their hands on your head, so to speak, and they say, Yehi ratzain she'eh Shabbos haba kach. Now, then we say, let's go a little further, Yemina usmala uveinayu kala. That when we're understanding, and this mamash speaks to our Inyan, when we talk about Shabbos, the metaphor is Yemina usmala uveinayu kala. Everyone's been to a chuppah, right? So the chuppah, you have father, the mother, or if you're in more Haredi circles, the father and the father that are walking the kala to the chuppah. So Yemina usmala uveinayu kala. B'kishutin azla, she goes with kishutin. The Gemara says chavdal kishutin l'chol kala. There's a number 24 that she has to wear kishutin. Uman and delavushin and beautiful clothes. So what's this have to do with us? So Shabbos is Shabbos kala, boi chala, right? Shabbos is the kala. Shabbos is surrounded by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. By the way, la halacha, kacha. La halacha, it's like that. You can make Havdalah but it comes until Tuesday. But it comes, you can't eat until you make Havdalah, so you have a practical issue. But technically, you can make Havdalah until Tuesday. And Wednesday starts the time of Hachana Shabbos today. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday starts the time where it's already working into next week. What? What's going around? So it comes out that Ubeinayu Kala, so Shabbos Yemina, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Usmola, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Ubeinayu Kala, Shabbos Kodesh. So what we're looking at, what do we see when we see this picture? Not to say anything about parents walking their daughters down to the chuppah, but what we see is a klipa and the Kedusha inside. What does that have to do with the chuppah? What you see is the makor hadavar. What you see is the alon, the root. You get all the way down to the root. So it's a nice minhag. You have even grandparents there, great grandparents. To walk. It's a toast ladati. Something you could argue with your machutin with, like I did. To have little kids walking down the chuppah because you're going in the wrong direction. It's sweet, it's cute, and they're throwing roses, communicate, Catholics, but there's nothing.
Well, that's the tapuch.
The tapuch.
Why isn't it?
I mean, we're doing Nasev and Ishma.
It goes in both directions.
It goes in both directions. I don't know if that's the metaphor of it's the metaphor of Yemino Shmalu. That's a kishutin, maybe.
The chassan and kara, the tapuch.
Yeah, I'm saying we're not looking further, we're looking back, bringing her forward. They're not her tapuch. That's Aunt Sally's kids. Or whoever happens to be cute. It's not Minagakum. The Minagakum and anybody with any Jewish seichel at all, understands that the worst thing to do is to take your cute kid and to march him down the aisle instead of in front of 300 people and say, "Oh, isn't cute." What happens to Ayin Hara? What happens to all the things that the Torah says? Just be tzanuah. It's tzanuah. Tzanuah. What's the, everybody and all the Kalameidalach are walking. What are you supposed to do? Well, you're going to the holiest thing in the world of chuppah, and everybody, and here's the future Kalas walking down. It doesn't. It's not just chukas akum, but it's like the worst kind of chukas akum. L'dati. But not to listen to me. I'll go to the wedding anyway. I'm just feel like it's the wrong thing. But anyways, what you have here is the kala, which is the tapuach. She is the tapuach. She's the esrog here, surrounded by Yemina Usmola, which is a mashal only to Shabbos. We're not talking about chasanas. We're talking about Shabbos, and Shabbos is the union of. So here you have such an important. You said let's leave it at this, and then we'll go further. That Shabbos is not an independent concept. Shabbos comes from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and goes to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Shabbos Kodesh, Likra Shabbos L'chuv Elcha Ki Hi Makar HaBracha. So what is a bracha? A bracha is not for Shabbos. The bracha is taking Sheishes Yomim Tasim L'Achtecha, taking the week before, which the Sheishes Yomim is going on the two sides of Shabbos, taking that and being Mekadosh. This is the beauty of Judaism, that we sanctify things. So taking the Gewaldike week, which can be all Klippa, and bringing it into Shabbos. Here's what we're bringing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we're saying, bless it. Shamru b'nei Yisrael es Shabbos, lasis es Shabbos. Let us go to the next Shabbos. El bolei Shamru Yisrael shtei Shabbos is miyad nigolan. You need two Shabbos. Why? Because you need the Yemina and you need the Smola. You need two Shabbos in order to have. So you need Shabbos, which is getting its koach from the Sheishim Eisav, and you need Shabbos, which is giving its koach to Sheishim Eisav. So what do the Malachim say? Yehi Ratzain, let it be His will. Sheb'Shabbos haba yekach. That if you're being mamtik to Shabbos, let there be another Shabbos, because then you have the gula. Whether it's a personal gula or a world's gula, El Malay Shamru Yisrael shtei Shabbos. Shamru b'nei Yisrael sa Shabbos only, lasis sa Shabbos. To make the next Shabbos. So that's the Imeinu Small V'nai Kala, because Shlit'a Arizal, Manim Zilvushin. Then it gets more fun. Yechabek Labala, B'Yisoida Dila. So we'll leave that for next week. But what the main thing I wanted to be mavari here today was to understand the Chakal Tapuchin of the seudah Friday night, which is back to the same sugya that we've been talking about of the Pnimius HaTorah, meaning not the Pnimius HaTorah, not the Kabbalah, but that which one has to dig so deep inside to find that MS, and not von Oibenuf, like that MS of Torah, of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir. And that's what Yitzchak was after, and that's what Shabbos is after, to find the side of the Chakal Tapuchin in life. And we find it in life, and we find it in Klal Yisrael, then you have the bracha of Torah Shebal Peh, which brings you to the bracha of the Geula.
It didn't start though in a pure place, and then went through two months, right? Because it started getting given to Cain, Nimrod, right?
All the Tikkun.
But it did start by Gan Eden, right?
Yes, but so Gan Eden was the Gilui, and then we did the Chet.
Right.
So now that we did the Chet, the Tikkun is coming in a different direction altogether.
Can you just re-explain the connection to the part about Nasa and Ishmael?
So the Maisa is the most external part, and then we dig deeper.
The Pri is the Nasa.
So the Pri is the Nasa. That's the Maisa, what you want from this whole thing, right?
Are you digging deeper for the leaf?
Yeah, no, it's for the Makar. You're finding out that the Makar of the Pri is really Choshech. And therefore, if you dig into Choshech, therefore it follows that if you dig deep enough into Choshech, if you're smart enough, if you're a Yitzchak, you can look at a root and you see an apple. So Rivkah didn't see that, but he saw it. So sometimes has yiur, but say it's
So maybe it's an even greater level to be able to see. You have a heart, but you can turn that around
right.
into something.
You see the Machlekes Hillel and Shammai. Listen, put a goof in, like every day you made Shabbos. Shammai.
Right.
Every day you made Shabbos. Always looking for the good. Avos Lanu. I'll say something more for Shabbos. Like, question is, do you look at it during the week or do you look at it on Shabbos too? Okay.
You also say that there was like almost a split in Yaakov. Like another way to look at it was once he took on the mantle and realized that Eisav wasn't going to follow the path, and he now became not only Yishkan but also an Yishkan.
He did.
Right.
So he ran to love him.
Right. So at that point, maybe it wasn't so wrong because maybe he, in a way, he had to become like a split
He
personality.
wasn't wrong at all.
Right.
But it's interesting, right after all of this, he comes
Right.
to
What
love
caused
him.
what?
He says to him to love him. He says to himself, Rashi says, Achi ani b'ramais, I could be as big of a Ramai as he can be.
Right.
So that's probably because he was wearing the Beged of Eisav. I know how this fits. Yeah. So I could be a creep too and bring out some good stuff. So that's the
Right. You have to be able to use it both worlds.
Var Mamukim.
Good.